just weeks away from Shimmering Skies releasing to hobby stores, and the spoilers are starting to come in almost daily. And since it's been a few weeks since my last Shimmering Skies reveal video, I thought it was time to talk about a bunch of cards that have been spoiled since then. So today, we're going to look at over 30 new Shimmering Skies cards and the new D23 promo set. I should mention some of the cards will not be full resolution versions. Rather, they are very grainy screenshots or have been translated from other languages. So I'm just going to do my best to evaluate them based on what I'm seeing here. So if you see a card that looks weird, you know why. All right, let's go. First things first, let's talk about the new D23 promo set, which comes with 6 cards from a few different sets, including one from set 6, which launches in the winter of 2024. This set will cost $99.99 and be available at D23 in August, Disneyland, and select Disney stores in Europe. The set includes a special edition of Mickey BLT, Cinderella Stouthearted, Ursula Deceiver, Bruno Undetected Uncle, and 2 new cards, Vanellope Sugar Rush Princess and Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. So first off, we'll take a look at Vanellope. She's an inkable 4-cost ruby card with 2 strength and 4 willpower. She can shift for 2, and she has one ability called I Hereby Decree. Whenever you play another princess character, all opposing characters get -1 strength until the start of your next turn. She also quests for 2 lore. This is pretty interesting. I kind of like the 2 lore and being able to shift out really early so that it can be kind of aggressive. She's a little understated for a 4-drop, but it's fine. Normally I'd say minusing character's strength is not amazing. After using Kita, Protector of Atlantis, in the Emerald Amber deck that was going around a little bit at the start of set 4, I actually think it's pretty strong, especially if you can pull off multiple strength decreases and sort of just safely quest with a lot of your characters, unless, you know, they play a Maui or something with Rush to take something out. But all in all, it makes your questing a lot safer, and so for that reason I like it. Whether this sees any play or can stand the test of time remains to be seen. And next up, our set 6 card. I'm very excited about this, the Oswald Lucky Rabbit. He is an uninkable 2-drop that has 2 strength and 1 willpower. He quests for 2, and he has one ability called Favorable Chance. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an item card, you may play that item for free and they enter play exerted. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck, and it is a Sapphire card, obviously, because it deals with items. I think this card's ridiculously good. Whether or not it sees play, though, with its 1 willpower remains to be seen, because it is pretty weak. But the thing is, while it has 2 quests, you probably don't want to quest with it, because you kind of just want it to sit there so that every time you ink or ramp, you get to look and try and play items for free. I think this card is really, really good and will probably see play in the winter of set 6 when it eventually comes out, because I think even if you buy this D23 promo set and get a copy of Oswald, or, you know, if you get multiple copies of Oswald, I don't think you are actually legally able to play it yet, because set 6 is not officially released. So for a few months, it's going to just basically be a cool, you know, piece that you have. Yeah, I think this is a super cool card, and we'll see if set 6, if items are still a thing, if they're still around, because I love this. And I even said in a previous video, I really want more Toon cards, and they're finally giving it to me. I love Oswald. So yeah, super excited about this one. All right, next up we've got Pete, Wrestling Champ. He is an uninkable 3-cost steel card with 1 strength and 3 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has one ability called Repeat, which I love that name. Tap this character, exert this character, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card named Pete, you may play it for free. Most of the Pete cards are not that great, so unless there's a Pete that we have not seen yet that wants to cheat this out, I actually don't think this card's that great. While I love the art and I love the name of the ability, there's so much going on here. I don't think this card's that great yet. There's a chance, you know, a few years down the road, if we get some really good Petes, this could be a really cool card, but as for now, I'm not really sold on it. Next up, we have a 4-cost inkable Amber card, Try Everything. It is a song, and it says remove up to 3 damage from chosen character and ready them. They can't quest or challenge for the rest of the turn. I'm not a fan of this. I can't really think of any instances where I would really want to do this unless you had some kind of benefit from healing your characters. But even then, it's like, it's a 4 cost. Why wouldn't you just play something like Rapunzel, gifted with healing, or any of the other cards that when you heal something, you draw a card or something? I don't know. I'm not a believer. I don't think this is a very good card. All right. We're finally getting some more hyenas. So now we have Ed, Hysterical Partygoer. He is a uninkable 4 cost with 2 strength, 4 willpower. Should mention he's an emerald card. He quests for 3 lore, and he has 1 ability, Rowdy Guest. Damaged characters cannot challenge this character. It's kind of funny, it's kind of cute. Still waiting to see if the Emerald Steel Ping deck becomes a thing this set. It seems like they're getting a ton of cards, and we're gonna go over a bunch of them as we go through this, but it's still kind of like, will this see play? I don't know. It might, is sort of the way I see it. In draft, I would probably play this just because it has a ton of lore. I think I would just kind of ignore its ability, even though you kind of do tend to just get some characters hanging out with damage on them in draft sometimes. So I actually think this card could be pretty good in draft. In constructed, kind of remains to be seen. So I don't know, we'll see. All right, next up we have a genie card, and I only have a translation of the actual ability. I don't have a translation of his subtitle or his types or anything like that, but he's an uninkable 7 cost Amethyst card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and he can quest for 2. And his ability reads, while this card is exerted, your opponent's characters do not ready at the start of their turn. This is okay. I mean, it sounds pretty cool. There might be some cool situations where you can lock people out, but you know, a quick Maui will just take care of this, or just some other removal like Dragonfire or something. I guess the main problem for your opponent is that their characters would not have readied by the time you can take this out, so you are still sort of getting that turn off when, you know, that happens. But I don't know, remains to be seen. I think this is cool. I love the art, and the stats are okay, and the lore is okay. It's just the ability. There might not be space anywhere for a card like this, but we'll see, is sort of the way I feel about it. In draft, I would say that this might be a good top end if you don't get anything else, but I wouldn't rely on it completely. All right, next up we have Clarabel Contented Wallflower. She's an inkable 3 cost with 2 strength and 3 willpower. She quests for 1 and has 1 ability called One Step Behind. It says, when you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you may draw a card. This in draft is amazing. Play this a lot, pretty much every time if I got one of them, because card draw in draft is just really hard to come by, and getting card draw in Emerald before seemed really hard, but now we have things like Diablo, and we have some other things coming in this set that help us draw cards. So I actually think this could see some play. We'll see. In draft, I think this is an amazing card. In constructed, sort of a we'll see. I feel like it's competing with Diablo for that 3 slot, but I guess, you know, if you don't have Diablos and you just desperately need card draw, I guess this could help you out, but I would still rather play Diablo in the 3 slot than this. Okay, next up, this is a really cool card, and it actually comes with a few other cards attached to it. And when I first saw it and read through them all, I thought, wow, do I really want to build a Knights deck finally? Because this just seems really cool. So we have Snow White, Fair-Hearted. She is an uninkable 5 cost with 3 strength, 5 willpower. She's a Dreamborn hero, princess, knight. It's a lot of keywords. She also quests for 3, and she has 1 ability, Natural Leader. This character gains resist +1 for each other knight character you have in play. Whoo boy, I think this card rules. If this wasn't released with all the dwarf cards at the same time, which we'll go over in a second, I probably would have been like, well, this is probably fine. But after seeing it with all the dwarves, I definitely think there is something here. There is a deck here. Whether or not it's like meta viable remains to be seen, but there's definitely like a fun Snow White in the 7 Knight Dwarves deck somewhere in here. It would have been funny if they called this Snow Knight. Actually, you know what? Snow Knight. Let's just coin that right now. The Snow Knight deck. It's happening, all right? Anyway, I think this card is super cool. Again, whether it sees meta play, really hard to say, but I definitely am gonna build some kind of fun Snow White and the 7 Dwarf Knights deck. So anyway, let's go over all of the 7 dwarfs because they were also released at the same time. All right, first we have Bashful. I'm gonna mention this just before we get into all the dwarves. They are all steel and they all come in various costs and stuff, but yes, they're all in steel, so I'm not gonna mention their colors going forward. This one is an inkable 4 cost, Bashful Adoring Knight. He has 3 strength and 4 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has 1 ability, Impress the Princess. While you have a character named Snow White in play, this character gains Bodyguard. That's pretty cool. It's kind of unfortunate that when he comes into play, Snow White's a 5-drop and he's a 4, so you're not going to curve with this super well, and the Snow White doesn't have shift, so you can't play another smaller Snow White to shift out first. But I mean, you could play this on 4 and it could sit there, and then on 5, when you play the new Snow White, he gains Bodyguard and he can quest and just become a bodyguard for all of the other dwarves at the same time. So it's not a terrible offset, but it's definitely not as good as it could be, but I definitely think you still play this card in that deck. Whether you play this in a deck that's not about the dwarves, I'm gonna say probably not, just because it relies so heavily on Snow White to be good, basically. But other than that, you know, cool card for the dwarf deck. Not really gonna see anywhere else. I might play this in draft, even if I don't have a Snow White, just because it's kind of, the stats are okay, but I think there are better things that you could pick in draft. All right, next up, Doc Bold Knight. He's an uninkable 2 cost with 1 strength, 3 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has 1 ability, Drastic Measures. When you play this character, you may discard your hand to draw 2 cards. I'm gonna say this sounds bad at first, but if you just think about it a little bit, I don't think you play Doc Bold Knight on turn 2, because by turn 2, you've inked twice and you've probably played 2 cards, so that means you have 3 cards in hand, potentially. You don't really want to discard 3 cards, unless they're just really bad. You don't want to discard 3 cards and draw 2 cards. You kind of want to hold on to this until about like turn 4-ish, when you maybe have a lot less cards, like maybe 2 to 1. Because if you have this in hand with 1 other card and you play this and you don't really care about the other card, then this is great. You're basically just getting a slightly refreshed card, or a slightly refreshed hand, I should say. So I definitely think this is a little bit of a trap. You don't play this on turn 2. You wait and play this a little bit later. But other than that, I think it's pretty cool, but it's definitely going to require you to like play around and be very careful with it. All right, now we've got Dopey Knight Apprentice. He's an inkable 3 cost with 2 strength and 2 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has 1 ability, Stronger Together. When you play this character, if you have another knight character in play, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character or location. 1 damage is not amazing, especially for a 3-drop, but it could help you and some of your other knights just sort of get rid of something or kind of soften it up. 1 damage could deal with a few things, probably not much, but I think this one's okay. I do think you still run it in a Snow White deck. You definitely don't run it in draft because it's just so understated, and you definitely don't run it in just any other deck that doesn't use knights, because there's literally no point. So in everything else, very bad. In draft, pretty bad. In the knight deck, it's okay. So we'll see. Okay, next up, Grumpy Skeptical Knight. He's an inkable 3 cost with 3 strength and 1 willpower. He quests for 1, and he actually has 2 abilities. So he has Boon of Resilience. While one of your knight characters is at a location, that character gains resist +2, which is kind of nice. I don't necessarily think we have any kind of knight related locations yet. I would say for this, if we're gonna go combat heavy, we would run something like Thebes, just to see if we could get some lore off the combat, but kind of remains to be seen if Knights is a combat heavy deck. You know, we could pair it with Ruby and maybe get away with it, but it's hard to say because so much of it is about getting resist. I'm wondering if you actually want to fight or if you kind of just want to like turtle there and quest and see what happens. But anyway, his second ability is Burst of Speed. During your turn, this character gains Evasive, and that's pretty cool. That means you could take out some really annoying things in the meta. You could take out a Bruno, you could take out a Diablo, you could take out a few other things. You would lose his first ability if you just happen to have a location out and you have some knights there. You would lose that first ability, but either way, I actually think Grumpy's pretty good. I struggle to think if you would play him outside the knight deck, which is kind of the unfortunate thing with a lot of these knights is like, yeah, they all go together, but the minute they're separated, they're kind of not as good. All right, next one is Happy Lively Knight. He's a inkable 1 cost with 2 strength, 1 willpower, and he quests for 1 lore. And he has ability Burst of Speed. During your turn, this character gains evasive. I think this card rules. It's immediately de-incentivizes your opponent from playing something like Diablo, because basically you play this on turn 1 and they're kind of like, well, I have to get rid of it before I can safely play and exert my Diablo, because this just rams right into it and gets rid of it. This also can get rid of a few other things that are evasive that can be kind of annoying. I think this card actually rules. This is a card that you would play in just random constructed decks. I would definitely play this in draft as one of my 1-drops. This definitely goes in the knight deck. This is a great common card, and I don't know. Don't sleep on Happy. And speaking of sleeping, we have Sleepy Sluggish Knight. He's an inkable 2-cost card with 0 strength and 4 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has the ability Bodyguard. This is fine, I guess. I wish he had at least 1 strength. Like, having no strength sort of makes him not as great. Just sort of ruins it a little bit, but having Bodyguard from the get-go is nice to just protect your other dwarves and stuff from getting attacked. So, not terrible. Definitely goes in the knight deck for sure, just because it's another knight. So throw it in, you know. But in a regular deck, I'm sure there's better bodyguards you could be playing. Like, you could be playing Simba, who's also a 2-drop, and he's a 2/3. I would much rather play that than this. But in the knight deck, yeah, put this in. Okay, now we have Sneezy Noisy Knight. He's an inkable 4-cost card with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Headwind. When you play this character, chosen knight character gains Challenger +2. Pretty cool. This is basically a crab, but only for your knights. Again, in draft, probably wouldn't play this unless you just fall into the knight archetype somehow and get really lucky. Then, yeah, you know, play this to help your knights out. But otherwise, probably wouldn't play it in draft. And constructed, no, wouldn't play it at all unless you're playing a knights deck. But, you know, in the knights deck, it's pretty good. But then again, it begs the question, why not just play crab? But, you know, if you're trying to just get as many knights as possible, then obviously this is going to be better. All right, now that we're through all the knights, we have an uninkable 2-cost amber action, Invited to the Ball. Reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, put revealed character cards into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. I actually think this card is decent. I would play it in draft for sure when you're trying to find more characters. In constructed, I don't really know. We have so many other cards that can kind of look for characters and stuff. Obviously in a character heavy deck, you're probably gonna want this, but yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's decent is what I would say. But in draft, I would definitely pick this just to really help try and find some characters when I needed it. All right, now we have our first location. It is Sherwood Forest, Outlaw Hideaway. It is an inkable 2-cost location with a move cost of 2 and 7 willpower. It has 2 abilities. The first one is Forest Home. Your character's named Robin Hood may move here for free. And the second ability is Familiar Terrain. Characters gain Ward and exert this character and pay 1 ink. Deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character while here. I am skeptical that this is good. I think that we are getting a lot of Robin Hood cards in the next set, and you could argue that the Robin Hood deck is very much gonna be the ping deck. And so if you can move your characters here for free and just give them Ward, that's pretty nice. But I feel like if you're not playing a Robin Hood heavy deck, this kind of doesn't do anything. It doesn't give you any lore. Yes, you can move characters there to get Ward, but the move cost is 2, and that's just a lot to ask. You lose so much tempo by moving something for 2, especially pretty early in the game. I'm definitely of the opinion that this only really goes in like a Robin Hood tribal ping deck, but we'll see. There's other people I know who are very hot on this card, but I'm not as hot on it. All right, now we've got Monstro, Whale of a Whale. He is an inkable 5-cost Amethyst card with 5 strength, and 6 willpower. He quests for 1, and he's a vanilla. He has no abilities. I would pick this in draft a lot just because it has a lot of stats and it can take stuff out. In constructed, not really. There's better things you could be playing in the 5-drop slot. But in draft, yeah, this is a great card for your upper curve. I would definitely play this in draft all day long. Okay, probably one of the best cards in the set, if we're being honest. This next card is Daisy Duck Donald's Date. Say that 5 times fast. It is an uninkable 1-cost amber card with 1 strength and 4 willpower, which is a lot for a 1-drop. She quests for 2, and she has the ability Big Prize. Whenever this character quests, each opponent reveals the top card of their deck. If it's a character card, they may put it into their hand. Otherwise, they put it at the bottom of their deck. This card is ridiculously strong, and it comes out on turn 1 and can quest for 2. It does not even matter that it gives your opponent potential character cards. If they're playing something and they need specific actions and they pull the action out of, they're trying to top deck a brawl to take care of this or something, and it pops up when she quests and it goes right to the bottom. This card is ridiculously strong. I would probably suspect that this is going to go in any aggro deck that runs Amber, probably till the end of time, because it's going to be so annoying to get rid of. It quests for a lot. It can be really frustrating for your opponent if they're looking for specific non-character cards. And yes, while sometimes it can be beneficial by giving them characters that they might want right then or giving them inkable cards, I think all of the upsides of this just pay in dividends for that. You want to play this card if you're in Amber. This card is amazing. If you're in draft, you 100% want to play this card because it's going to get you so much lore so early in the game that it's going to be really hard for your opponent to come back from. I think you play this in every format and in most Amber decks going forward. This card's incredible. Okay, next up we've got Robin Hood Sneaky Sleuth. He's an inkable 5-drop with 3 strength and 5 willpower. He has a shift cost of 3, he quests for 1, and he has 1 ability, Clever Plan. This character gets +1 lore for each opposing damaged character in play. Maybe, let's go maybe be good. Again, it's going to be one of those ones where it's like, is the Robin Hood ping deck good? We'll see, but if it does pop off, I think, yeah, you play this in those. I don't think you really play this in any other deck. In draft, maybe you play it because the stats are okay, and even if they've got 1 character out that's damaged, this quest for 2. So it's fine, I guess, in draft. I wouldn't be like, the minute you open a pack and see this, you grab it. I wouldn't do that. But, later on in the draft process, yeah, maybe you might run this. It's also inkable, so worst comes to worst, it can just be ink. I don't think this goes in any deck that's not the Robin Hood kind of tribal ping deck that may or may not see play. It's very unclear. We'll see. All right. Next, we've got another action. It is Finders Keepers. It is an inkable 5-cost Amethyst card, and it reads draw 3 cards. 5 ink to draw 3 cards that you can't sing is asking a lot. I might play this in draft just because when you get that high up in ink, you're probably screaming for more cards. So the fact that you could use this and just kind of refill a lot of your hand is probably actually really nice in draft. In constructed, you can't sing this. It's kind of expensive. I don't know that this will see play in constructed. In draft, probably. We have a 7-cost uninkable steel card, Lord Hector, Lord of the Castle. He has 7 strength and 10 willpower. He quests for 3 and he has no ability. He's just a vanilla. In draft, I actually could see this being like your upper limit bomb, but he is uninkable, which kind of makes him a little more unappealing, which means he's probably going to sit around. But if you can get him out, 10 health is basically going to win you the game. So maybe if this is the top end of your draft deck, sure, run it. Otherwise, I don't really think this sees play. I don't know if this sees play in the night deck just because I don't know how much ink you're going to really want in the night deck. All the knights are so cheap and you're going to probably top out around 5 or 6 ink. So I don't know. This feels like a goofy night for a day situation where when you first see the card, you're like, wow, that's really strong. But then you kind of think about it a little bit and you're like, oh, well, it's kind of hard to get out. So probably wouldn't play it. Draft, maybe. Next is I'm Not Having Fun Anymore. It is an inkable 1-cost sapphire action that reads, choose one of your characters and place it in your inkwell, face down and exhausted. No. Other than having a Grandma Tala out on the board and you're just desperate, I really do not see the utility for this. And, you know, I could be proven wrong. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But everybody else I've talked to about this card, we're all kind of like, I don't know, man. You know what's better than just placing one of your characters in the ink supply face down and exhausted? Just putting this in the ink well face down and not exhausted. You get that ink immediately. So why put the character there in the first place? I don't know. I'm gonna say nah to this card. This is not good. Next up, The End is Near. This is an inkable 2-cost ruby card. Action. It says choose one of your characters and ready them. They cannot quest for the rest of this turn. If you choose a villain character this way, gain 1 lore. This is okay. This is basically like Fan the Flames again, or like a LeFou, but I'd rather play LeFou because it's a body that you get to play on the board. So in draft, yeah, this could be cool for like your top end cards. You could attack again or something. You could quest and then ready them and then attack something. So you can get 2 for 1. This is okay. I think in draft, I might play it. In constructed, I don't think so. I think there's other options. We have another Clarabel card, something clumsy. Sorry, I can't read it. It is an inkable 1-cost emerald card with 1 strength and 2 willpower. It has 1 ability that says you can pay 2 ink to choose an item and ban it, and she quests for 1. This is pretty decent. I don't know if this card sees play. I mean, because, you know, in an emerald deck at this point, you're like, I could be playing like Merfolk. But otherwise, I think this card's kind of whatever. It's fine, I guess. I don't know that it'll see play in constructed, but in draft it might see a little bit of play just because it's an easy 1-drop to grab. All right, next up we've got Merlin Turtle. He's an inkable 4-cost amethyst card with 3 strength and 3 willpower. He quests for 2. He has 1 ability which reads, when this character enters play and leaves play, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put 1 back on top of your deck and the other below. I actually think this is a really cool card. I would play this in draft all day long. In current Amethyst decks, I don't really know if this sees play just because it's so competitive. It's like, what are you gonna take out? You're gonna take out the goats, which sometimes help you win the game. Are you gonna take out foxes or any other 4 drops? I could see people who are running the Amethyst bounce package maybe swap goat out for this just because they find the filtering much more appealing than just getting the 1 lore, which I could see. I could see doing 2 turtles, 2 goats, but either way, I think this is a really cool card and actually very useful card. Okay, next up, we've got a mini card whose subtitle I cannot read. It is an amber inkable 4-cost card with 1 strength, 5 willpower. She quests for 2, and she has 1 ability. Each time this character quests, you can choose a character and remove 2 damage from it. Pretty decent, but again, it's a 4-cost, so why wouldn't you just run Rapunzel, gifted with healing, where you get to draw cards? This just removes damage, whereas Rapunzel removes up to 3 damage and lets you draw cards for it as well. She does quest for 2, which is nice. In draft, I would probably play this just because it has a lot of lore and it can heal stuff. Otherwise, constructed, I think there's better options. Still pretty cool nonetheless. All right, we're getting there. We're getting close. Next up, we have another Robin card. He is an inkable 2-drop emerald card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and he quests for 1 lore. He has 1 ability which reads, when you play this character, if an opponent has a damaged character, gain 1 lore. I don't really know what you do to get 1 damage on a character by the time turn 2 rolls around. I mean, there is a possibility it does happen, but I would say it's more unlikely unless your opponent is playing a Ruby deck, like they're playing the Mulan that comes out with damage on them or something. Then this just gets you a lore right off the bat, and that's pretty cool. In draft, yeah, would definitely play this Robin Hood in draft. In constructed, it definitely goes in the Robin Hood ping deck. In any other deck, not totally sure, but it's cool. It's pretty interesting. All right, and now we've got Iago Fake Flamingo. He is an emerald 4-cost inkable card with 2 strength, 4 willpower, quests for 1. He has evasive, which is funny because he's in disguise, And his ability in Disguise reads, whenever this character quests, you pay 2 less for the next action you play this turn. So this counts for songs. I don't think it will lower the singing cost of songs. It will only lower the cost. So really interesting. I think this does possibly go in that ping deck just to lower the cost of actions and make it a lot more easy to do that. Other than that, it's kind of neat. I don't know if you would play this in draft, really. I actually, now that I think about it, I probably would play it in draft, but mainly just because it's an evasive, not because of its ability, really, because honestly, I'm not playing that many actions in draft, to be frank, but I would play this for the evasiveness for sure. Okay, next one we're going to talk about for a minute because there is a lot to say about this one, and people have opinions, and I have opinions as well. And maybe mine is a little different from everyone else's, but, you know, we'll see. This is Mufasa, Ruler of Pride Rock. It is a Sapphire card. It's an uninkable 8 cost, 4 strength, 9 willpower, quests for 4 lore. He has 2 abilities. His first ability is when you play this character, exert all cards in your inkwell, then return 2 cards at random from your inkwell to your hand. Very interesting. I have a lot to say about this, but let's just get through the rest of the card and we'll start talking about it. And then his second ability is everything the light touches. Whenever this character quests, ready all cards in your inkwell. This sounds ridiculous at first. It sounds so strong, and it is really strong. However, I don't know that people are drawn to the fact that it's strong. I think what draws me to it is that it's interesting and does things that we have not seen in the game yet. There are mechanics in here that are brand new, and there's some really interesting design going on in this card. So first off, let's just talk about the smaller things. It has 4 strength, which means it can't be Medusa'd. It has 9 willpower, which means it's not easily removed. This is a pretty sticky card. And maybe its one downside is not being inkable. I think if this was inkable, it would be just ridiculously strong. And then 8 cost is pretty high, but it's Sapphire, so they're going to get there by turn 5. You know, they're going to ramp. It's going to be fine. And then questing for 4 is also a lot. So right off the bat, stat-wise, pretty beefy card that is pretty sticky because of all the removal that makes it hard to get rid of this. Its first ability, when you play this character, exert all cards in your inkwell, and then you get to return 2 cards at random to your hand, which is really interesting. This is the first time we've ever had cards come back from the inkwell. So in a way, you could argue that this card is a little bit of a nerf to something like Hades, who could put an opponent's character in the inkwell or let it go. Because previously, when you would do that, there was basically no way of getting that card back. You know, you were removing it from play, so to speak. Yes, you were giving your opponent extra resources, but it was basically gone. Now it's maybe not gone. And obviously it's random, so it's going to be a little hard to like try to get what you want. And however they decide to do it in official events remains to be seen. I think one of the interesting things about this card is to return cards from your inkwell to your hand, you almost have to exert all your cards in your inkwell. It's like basically a requirement for this card to even function from a design standpoint, and I'll explain why. Let's say you have like, I don't know, you have 12 ink, okay? And you play this. So you exert 8 ink and you play this, and now you're supposed to return 2 cards at random from your inkwell to your hand. So you shuffle all your inkwell and you take 2 cards out. And then you suddenly go, wait, how many did I have unexerted? Because you don't know what you took and what you didn't take. And obviously, if you remember the number, you know, if you know in your head, I have 15, I counted, then it's a little easier to do. But not everyone does that. And people make mistakes. I make mistakes. People I play with make mistakes all the time. People get flustered in tournaments and make mistakes. Mistakes happen. And a card like this is so prone to mistakes. The minute that you have to pick stuff up, and put things in your hand, and just there's so many points at which everything could go wrong, right? So I think the idea is you exert all your cards in your inkwell so that when you get the 2 out, you just know all your inkwell is just exerted. Like you've done the thing you want to do for the turn. You definitely are going to have to play around that if you have more ink than 8 when you play this. You're definitely going to want to like do some stuff before you do this so that when you actually play it, you're not just locked out for the rest of the turn. And then whenever this character quests ready all cards in your inkwell, that is pretty strong, but it's only strong in the sense that you think about with the idea that you actually have cards to do things with in your hand, because let's be honest, sometimes you just have no cards, or you have like 2 and you don't really want to play them. So questing with this and readying all your inkwell doesn't really matter sometimes. Sometimes it will. You know, in Magical Christmas Land, you play a bunch of cool stuff and draw cards, and then you quest with this and you're like, I got 4 lore and now I've got all this, you know, ink to do more stuff with, and you have the longest turn in history. But that's probably not going to happen most of the time. So the readying all cards in your inkwell, yes, very strong, very cool. But I think a lot of times it's not going to do these like, you're not going to have these crazy turns that people are imagining, right? So all in all, will this card see play? I think probably it will. It is competing with Tamatoa though in the items deck, and Tamatoa is inkable, so it does have a little bit of an edge on it. However, Tamatoa sometimes just does not have as much lore as this. This is a lot more consistent on lore, and it's about the same. I'd say it's about the same difficulty to remove this as Tamatoa, even though the stats are different. I think this card will see play. I think people will build around it, but I don't know if it will necessarily replace things like Tamatoa. And if it doesn't, I think it's going to be a little bit of a hard sell, but there could be some deck down the future where this is just like the linchpin and you need this to do crazy stuff on your turn. So in draft, because it's a legendary and because it's just so expensive and it's uninkable, funny enough, I probably would take it in draft, but not to play, just because it's a legendary. And if it becomes expensive, it's like, oh, well, now I have it, you know, which is such a dumb, like, obviously you should draft to win the game, but sometimes, you know, you see that card and you're like, I need that. I'm just gonna grab it. Like, I'll sacrifice, you know, the better card to just get the thing I want. So in draft, I don't know if you play this. I don't really know, other than just the 4 lore and stuff. If you can get up to 8 ink, then congrats, because it's really hard to do in draft. You're inking almost 25% of your deck just to get to this point, so it's very difficult. So in draft, I don't know if you run this. You maybe do, just for the off chance you do it. Constructed, I think this probably will see some play somewhere. I think this card is very good, but with an asterisk. Either way, fascinating card that does some really interesting and cool things. We'll see, you know. But other way, I think it's a really good card, but, you know, keep that asterisk in mind. It might not replace things like Tamatoa. Okay, now for a less interesting card, but still one that I actually think could be kind of interesting. So this is an inkable 1-drop location in Sapphire, Merlin's Cottage, the wizard's home. It has a move cost of 1 and 7 willpower and 1 ability. Knowledge is power. Each player plays with the top card of their deck face up. It has no lore. And you're immediately going, why on earth would I play this? Well, there's a couple reasons. You have things like Sorcerer's Hat, which lets you name the top card of your deck, and if you name it correctly, you can draw the card. Now you don't have to guess, you just see what the card is at all times. Now, the downside is that your opponent always knows what you're drawing, right? So there's no surprises really, and that can give them a little bit of a tactical advantage. But the other thing you can do with this card is play the Bruno, I believe it's Undetected Uncle card, where when you tap him, or excuse me, exert him, you can name the top card of your deck, and if you get it right, you get 3 lore, and you get to draw the card. I think these two together go really, really well, because you just see what the card is all the time. And I think that's really neat. The only downside is you could probably only do it once per turn, because there aren't really ways to ready characters in either Sapphire or Amethyst, and if you were going to do that combo, you're playing basically a Blurple deck. So does it have potential? I think Merlin's Cottage actually does have some potential to make some sort of Bruno Blurple. That's really hard to say. Bruno Blurple. My God. It has some potential there, but whether or not that's just kind of a fun deck to bring to open play, or whether it's actually like a meta viable deck, really remains to be seen. But I think this card is kind of interesting, but it probably only will be used in niche circumstances. And in draft, I wouldn't use this really at all, probably. All right, and that is it for all of the reveals. My God, that was a lot. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you would like to know when new videos go up. Spoiler alert, it's basically every Friday. I want to thank you for watching the channel and being a supporter. I really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it. Shimmering Skies, we're almost there. Bye. Love you.